Okay, thanks for stopping by stuckonsimple.com. So today we're going to replace the shower dome or skylight. And the first thing we do is we want to pull up the old adhesive or the old sealant. And with a putty knife, it's usually not too difficult. We want to expose the screw heads first. And with a putty knife, we're able to get underneath and expose the sealant. Once you get it started, you can even get your thumb and fingers under there. So there's one of our screws. And you just want to kind of dig away. They're usually Phillips screw heads. And we'll take out these screws, pull up all the sealant, and clean it up with mineral spirits. With a rubber roof, EPDM roof, you want to be very careful with mineral spirits. Use it sparingly, but that's going to clean off the adhesive and the sealant. So we'll continue to the next step once we get the sealant off of here and get the screws out. So we've got the screw heads exposed, but look at what the last installer, whoever put this in last, look at all that cracking. They screwed down on the screws too tight, and no wonder our skylight is leaking. I'm surprised it didn't leak before this. So you want to be very careful when you install not to tighten down on these screws too tight. So I'm just taking out the screws now, and after we get them all out, we've got to remove the rest of the sealant, and we're going to lightly use some mineral spirits to loosen up that adhesive, and we'll show you the next step once we got the skylight off. And as you can see, look at all that cracking and breakage from the last installer. Whoever installed it, they tightened down the screws too much. So you want to be careful when you put these skylights in. You don't want to over tighten those screws. Remember, the sealant that you put over top of it is what's going to keep the water out, not So after you shake well the primer, you spray it on pretty liberally. I don't make it pull or anything like that. You don't want to put it on that much, but saturate it, and then after 30 seconds to 45 seconds, like for instance, now it's tacky. So now we're able to pull this backing off of the tape. Sometimes you have to do a little crinkle breakaway in order to get it to separate the backing from the tape. There we go. Alright, so you have a band-aid on your thumb, don't get it onto the Turnabond because it'll stick to it. Alright, so then I've pre-cut these obviously. Now I'm just ready to lay it down. And in the wind, this isn't so much fun, I see. So you'll notice I'm not worried about my screw holes, the old screw holes, because when you order the skylights, they don't necessarily match up exact anyway. So you may be drilling new holes anyway. So there's our first piece of the Turnabond down. And notice a little bit of the gunk, the adhesive is on the top. You can wipe that off later. And then our second piece. Nothing ever works perfect on video. Alright. Not perfect, but we're doing a good job of sealing. My edges aren't exactly perfectly square, but I don't care for right now. So now we can lay our skylight. I feel good about covering the torn rubber roof. And of course, once we lay our skylight, we're going to screw it down. Again, don't tighten the screws too tight to where you crack the plastic, because then you're going to seal each screw hole and all the seam around the skylight. And then what I'm going to do, you don't have to do this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a layer of Eternabond completely around that perimeter of the skylight as well. And we should have no leaks. So we'll come back to you when we're ready to screw down the skylight. Alright, so we've got skylight in place. Did a little cutting of the old sealant to make sure it was sitting in place okay. And I'm not, like I said, none of the new holes for the skylight match up with the old holes, and that's kind of normal. So don't get worried about that when you're replacing these. So you're going to be making new holes. I got new stainless screws. The skylight did not come with screws. I went to Home Depot and just matched up. They're 1 inch, number 8, and so I got stainless this time because I noticed that some of the old screws, the moisture, they started rusting. So I wanted to replace them, and I figured I'm going to get stainless this time. And it won't counteract with any other metals because it's gone into, you know, plastic, then the rubber roof, then wood. So stainless should hold up good. So Phillips head, make sure you get pan head. Don't get flat head. The pan head is going to fasten against the surface of the skylight better. So we're just gonna put them in, and here we go. Make sure you don't over tighten. You want it snug, not too tight. You don't want to crack. You don't want to crack the new flange of this skylight. So if you over tighten, that's what's going to happen, or you'll strip your hole. So we'll get these screws in. Okay, so this is the skylight sealant that came with the skylight in the package. It's typical caulk gun I like to make a 45-degree cut, and you just puncture the sealant like a normal caulk. And so the first thing I'm going to do, which by the way I forgot to mention, before the skylight was placed in place, there is adhesive that goes on the bottom. So make sure you put the adhesive on the bottom of the flange too before laying it in place. So then once we put our screws in, that embeds it into the adhesive sealant, and now we're going to start off with the screw heads. So you just want to encompass that screw head with this sealant all the way around, and it's going to level itself. And you do each one, and then after we do the screw heads, we'll come back and we'll do the perimeter around the edges of the skylight. And what I'll probably do is I'll take a razor knife and even these out. Some of these high sides, I'll even it out to the bottom of the edge and seal around that. And don't forget, with me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Eternabond tape. After 24 hours of curing of the sealant, I'm going to put Eternabond tape over top of that. So we have a good, solid, waterproof surface for the skylight, and I expect no problems for a long time after this. So it's been 24 hours, and the sealer has been curing. All the skylight sealers that come with the skylights, they take 24 hours to set up and cure. So anyway, our screw heads are sealed, the flange is all sealed, but because of my situation with the old sealant, whoever put it on last time, whatever they used, it was starting to tear up the roof and the rubber roof. So I don't want to lose the integrity of the roof. So I went ahead and decided to use Eternabond tape to cover the whole thing, and just to be sure we don't have any leaks. So I've already cleaned around the perimeter of the skylight, around the flange, and this section is already primed. You can't see it because it dries clear or sets up clear, but I use Eternaprime, and that is for use with the Eternabond tape. It works really well. So here we go. We're gonna go ahead and lay this on the first. This is a pre-cut piece that I did earlier. And in the heat, if it's anywhere above 73 degrees out, it's about 75 here. This stuff is super sticky. So just keep some mineral spirits nearby to clean up. You just want to lay it nice and tight and kind of push down on all your edges and in the middle. But really, what I like to use then from this point here is the Eternabond gives you a roller. It's a weighted roller. It's pretty heavy. You could, in construction, you could also find this aftermarket, but anyway, this works really good. So just roll over and get all of your air bubbles out, and to make sure you've got a good seal. And I mentioned earlier, you know, there's a little bit of sticky stuff on the top white. It just happens with the roll of Eternabond. You can go around with mineral spirits and clean that off. And that's what we do. So we're going to continue to cut pieces and lay it the whole way around. And I may even double up on this edge so it cleans off this edge. But that's putting in a skylight.